Hey everybody, it's David Sirota. So as the terrible images from Houston continue to flow in, there's been this debate about whether it's appropriate to talk about climate change or not talk about climate change. I think it is appropriate to talk about climate change in the context of natural disasters like this, especially when high-profile climate scientists are saying that climate change plays a role in these kinds of storms. Yes, climate change may not have created these kinds of storms, but the consensus seems to be that they at least intensify these storms. One climate scientist told the Atlantic magazine that human activity, in terms of how it creates climate change, human activity can be accountable for up to 30% of the rainfall in a storm like this. So then the question becomes, if we can talk about climate change, what were Texas legislators doing or not doing to address climate change in the lead up to this terrible storm? What should they have known to do, and what did they refuse to do? We have a story at International Business Times today that I think is extremely important. It's about how Texas legislators in the state legislature there repeatedly killed legislation that would have required state agencies to come up with robust plans to deal with climate change and to prepare for climate-related disasters. That legislation was repeatedly voted down. And one legislator told us that it was because then Governor Rick Perry told the legislature to block that legislation. That this legislator, a Democratic legislator, said this, quote, "When I filed that legislation, Governor Perry's legislative staff told me that no legislation that had climate change in it would get out of committee. They came to our office and said to stop filing these bills. We will never let it out of committee." That's from the legislator who pushed those bills that were voted down. This is important context. It's important for us to understand what policies were enacted and weren't enacted before storms like this, when climate science was saying that climate change is playing a role in these kinds of weather events. It's also important to note what Texas's federal legislators were saying. I mean, you had one legislator, Kevin Brady, a congressman from Texas, who said that global warming is not an important issue to American families. You had the head of the House Science Committee from Texas, who has tried to dispute basic climate science. These are important context. These are important statements for people to understand as we look ahead towards probably and unfortunately more storms like this, and what can and should be done to deal with it, to mitigate against the kinds of disaster that we've seen in Houston.